Now, the Labour leader has travelled to Estonia to thank British troops for standing up to Russian aggression.
So Keir Starmer says the defence of the UK starts with Ukraine. He's pledged that the Labour government would reinforce NATO allies along the Russian border. Well, let's look at some of the politics of the day. The Sun columnist Trevor Kavanagh is with us. Trevor, good morning. What do you think Keir Starmer's trying to achieve?
Well, I think that he's trying to achieve the prime ministership. I mean, this has taken me totally by surprise, and I can almost barely believe it, which is often the case with Keir Starmer, who performs somersaults like a circus act. But, I mean, on this one, I almost feel full of admiration for the policy that he's announced. I detect the fingerprints of Tony Blair and Peter Mandelson behind this, but it is the right stance to adopt. Putin is a threat to Europe, to the West, and in cooperation with other despots around the world, to the entire global harmony.
Trev, welcome. Pre-Christmas, really appreciate you being on. I'm with you. To come out and say that about Putin, to come out almost as equally quickly as Sunak about Hamas. This is a very different Labour leader. This is a very different look from, yes, we were talking earlier, don't look back, but this is very different from Corbyn and Foot, the people you and I remember. This is a man saying to the British people, listen, I've done my best to rid the Labour Party of, you know, the problems of before. I am electable. I am a statesman. I find it quite interesting on the defence point of view. I'd love your take on this. I haven't got any meat on the bone. He says, you know, our defence systems are important. Would he spend more than 2.3% of GDP? Is he going to show us the money, do you think, Trev?
That's a totally different question, Jeremy. I think the answer is no. There is no money for the sort of things that we would need to do in order to really match those words with action. I mean, you mentioned Jeremy Corbyn, who was totally different, but the thing about Keir Starmer is that he was attached like glue to Jeremy Corbyn for 4 years during some of the most extreme policy decision-making of the Labour Party's history. So where do we stand on this? I really don't know whether this is the puppet or the ventriloquist speaking. And I do suspect that the strings are being pulled behind the scenes by Tony Blair, who sees himself as a global leader, someone on the world stage who still manages to make things happen, often for the worst. But on this particular policy, you can't really question it, because it is something that every party in this country should say, and say it proudly.
But that's the thing with Keir Starmer. Maybe he's just playing it safe. I mean, saying, look, we can't be soft on Putin. He's stating the obvious, really, and not much more, Trevor.
Well, I agree. And one of the things that we need to take into account when we look at Keir Starmer as a potential incoming Prime Minister is that he has a party to lead. And that party is deeply split from top to bottom, from left to right, and across all policy divides. There are a lot of people within the party who are very pro-Putin, very pro-Russia, and they won't like this. They will resist this. If he doesn't win with a landslide majority, and despite the opinion polls, that might yet not happen, I think that he's going to have a big struggle on a whole range of policies, including Gaza, including China, including America.
We all know you can win a massive majority and be out within 3 years. Trev, just one thing, and then we'll move on to Sunak. With Starmer, to me, and I'm with Rosie, he doesn't really, if you believe the opinion polls, have to do anything but keep quiet at the moment.
Well, exactly. And so when he makes a statement like this, that isn't a forced declaration, it seems to have more impact. It shows someone who seems to have a grasp of the sort of statesmanship that you need to be Prime Minister. And I have my doubts about this, frankly. I think that Keir Starmer is a fragile personality who is easily angered. And I think that he is following rules here, set down by others.
OK, let's talk about his key political opponent, the current Prime Minister, who right now will presumably be finishing up his kind of Christmas message that we'll hear at the end of this week. What has Rishi Sunak got to sort of celebrate, to herald, in terms of his achievements in the last year?
Yes, you introduced him there almost as the leader of the opposition, and it's getting that way, isn't it? I think that he has some things. I mean, this latest figure on inflation is quite important. I think the cost of living is impacting particularly on our readers and your viewers in a way that is quite serious and more than many of us fully appreciate. So That's good news, and I think it will come down further. What is amazing is that the Bank of England has got this so wrong, so consistently, right through the whole financial crisis of the last 2 or 3 years. But that's probably the best of it for the moment. I think that the other thing that he needs to do, almost in tandem with the economy, is the problem of immigration. And what's happened here is that Giorgia Meloni and the European Union seem to have stolen a march on Rishi by doing the very things that he's been struggling to do in terms of taking on the illegal migrants and having them dealt with elsewhere and sending them back within 3 months if they don't qualify.
Trev, I've been quite vocal about the next thing. I sort of, he wanted the job, let's be perfectly honest, and with it comes everything. But, I mean, you could look at it and go, this is a zombie government, man. This policy he decided to die on the hill with, Rwanda, whether you think it's good or bad, maybe F-500 will eventually go. People will tell me it's a deterrent and it sends a message. But he's stuck between the One Nation Tories who say if you go further to the right, you're stuffed, and the ERG who say if you don't come to the right, you're stuffed as well. Is he not, I mean, I don't want to be, but is he not a dead man walking? That's how I look at it, sadly.
Well, it's very difficult not to see it that way. I mean, the party itself seems to be going in for mass suicide. It's almost like a cult that sets fire to itself. And I think that this is the problem that faces British politics. I'm very gloomy about the prospects for the coming year. I don't think we're going to have a happy new year. I think we're going to have a terrifying one in many respects. Everything seems to be going pear-shaped, whichever way you look at it, from domestic policy, the doctors' strike, and all the problems of the blob, and further afield in Gaza and China and Russia. Nothing seems to be going according to any form of plan, if there's a plan at all.
So, well, we hear that the plan from Number 10 is that the general election will be called next year. Of course, that could change.
Yep.
If you're Sunak, what is your best strategy? You've just laid out a pretty bleak picture for what January might look like. May? Does he go early? Does he cling on till December?
Well, back in October, Rishi Sunak was telling friends that time is on our side, which led us all to believe that there would be an October election. And then all of a sudden, the gossip is around that they're thinking about a spring election. Get it over and done with, I suppose you could say. And if there is any good news around, for instance, I think that the Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, has a little bit more money to spend in his excuse me, in his forthcoming budget. I mean, who knows? But I think they could hurl cash at this, and it wouldn't make any difference. The minds are made up of so many voters that the Tories have messed up the last 13 years. Whoever's been Prime Minister, including David Cameron, the new Foreign Secretary.
Yeah, let's
and I
point
think
that out.
People are simply going to sit on their hands.